Welcome to the Butterfly Effect. I'm Garrett Horner. This is stage 17 of the 24 Tour de France, brought to you by Ketone Aid. It's KE4, what the pros like to drink after a hard Tour de France stage. It helps in quick recovery. If you're looking to save 15% on your next box of order of Ketone Aid, make sure you use the code BUTTERFLY in your next order. Now let's get into today's stage 17, because at 177 kilometers, we'll call it 110 miles in length, 3 category climbs, but they all come at the finish of the stage, starting at 39 kilometers. Then we're starting just under 20 kilometers. Then the last one starts at 3.8 kilometers and will summit and finish today's stage 17 of the Tour de France. But the first part of this stage is going to be the more interesting part of the stage for anyone that's not a GC contender. But of course, with three climbs and summiting at the finish of today's stage, you know it's a GC battle too. When the racing starts at kilometer 0, not much is happening. It goes curb to curb, not a whole lot of action there. You see it's going a little bit slow. Visma bikes start getting things interesting after we start leaving the town. Once we're about 5 kilometers into the stage, then we see some magnificent racing from this point all the way to the kilometer 0 here of stage 17. So if you slept in and you're on the west coast of the United States, well, you need to go back and rewind and watch the whole racing after 5 kilometers from kilometer 0 all the way into the finish. So you're going to need 170 kilometers to view it. Like I said, up front, action's happening all over. Peloton split in half. UAE team members, got a couple guys at the back of the group there, split off in the second group. And up front, well, Visma bike's going like crazy up there as there's some crosswinds, splitting the Peloton up and decimating the field right now. If you got some sore legs, you're going to be swinging on the back of the Peloton. And we see guys back there swinging all day long throughout the beginning part of this slight uphill drag all the way into 40 kilometers to go. Now, as the peloton comes back together, the action doesn't stop. There's attacks all over the place. Wout van Aert, Visma bikes throwing in attacks. Christophe Laporte's throwing an attack. Visma bikes coming over the radio, and they're saying UAE team members don't seem like they can control the peloton, and they got some guys at the back of the field. We see UAE team Emirates radio come on, and they're telling their guys that they got to get to the front and start helping out because Visma bikes attacking left or right. Now, we start getting into about 120 kilometers ago. We start seeing the first casualty. It's Alexei Lusenko from Astana. He's dropping out, and Sam Bennett had already been swinging off the back of the group. There's not even cars in front of him. I have been in this place when I did my first adventure at the Basque Country Tour, where I was back there with one other guy fighting all day long, and then the next stage he had dropped out, and it was just me back there looking like Sam Bennett is now. Now, Sam Bennett's going to end up climbing in the car eventually, but it's going to take a little bit longer. We go back up to the front of the group. Like I said, tags happening all over. I did not cover all of them. There's 1,000. And as we start seeing with about 118 kilometers to go, 4 riders go up the road. It's Thies Benoot that's leading this group of 4 up there from Visma bike. We get a little bit further up the road. Well, we see 4 more riders, and Laporte's leading this group. So we got 2 groups of 4 up there, and both have Visma bike riders with Thies Benoot and Christophe Laporte. We're into about 95 kilometers to go. EF Education are in trouble. They're driving the second group here called the Peloton at the front with 3 riders because Carapaz has missed the split. If I back the film up, I can show you plenty of attacks from EF Education, Carapaz and Ben Healy, but now they missed the split and they're going with everything they can trying to pull back the front group that has Tadej Pogačar, Jonas Vingegaard, and Remco Evenepoel in this front group. As EF Education are bringing everything back together, well, Sam Bennett's climbing off the bike and he's going to abandon here. He won't finish the 24 Tour de France. Now, as EF Education's flying by the front group, catching Tadej Pogačar's first group of the peloton, as I'll consider them the second, they come flying by, but there's still 2 groups up the road. And as they're flying by, you see Sivakov on the front going full gas to try to latch onto the back. There's EF Education. We're chasing for a while back there, but now they're leading the front of the peloton going full gas. Now, there's attacks left and right happening all over the place again, and we'll see the two groups, the second group there of 4 riders being led by Christophe Laporte, that group's getting pulled back. We're coming in about 60 kilometers ago. There's still 4 riders up the road, but they're coming across the sprint line competition, and we'll see as Magnus Cornelissen from Uno X grabbing maximum points. In the peloton behind, there's still a couple sprinters left. Beniam Girmay. If I take you back to yesterday's stage, he crashed in yesterday's stage just over 1.5 K to go when it went through the roundabout. There's a big question mark whether or not the air train was going to be good enough to come in and start today's stage and finish the Tour de France. Well, now they're coming in the sprint line competition. We'll see Albacine de Koenig going full gas, but then Beniam Girmay is going to come up and get 5th place points here for the sprint line competition. Jasper Philipsen gets 6th. That means Beniam Girmay is getting that much closer to sealing up the green jersey, and it means all of us sitting on the Chesterfield know that Beniam Girmay has at least got good enough legs to get through today's stage 17. Hopefully he's still recovering after today's stage. Now up front, once the riders get through the sprint line competition, a big group splits the peloton. I'm talking 35, 40 riders. It's massive. Massive group, but none of the GC favorites are up in this front group, at least none of the top 5, top 10 guys, because up front we got a bunch of different teams up there, but none of them in the top 10. But you do have FDJ represented. You do have Jayco represented up there, and Simon Yates made it in this front group. Carapaz from EF Education. I told you they did a big amount of work to bring Carapaz up to the front group and close up on the Laporte group. Well, Carapaz has made this front group too. And when we start looking at the other teams, there's numbers all over the place, but Visma Lease Bike have at least 2 riders in this front group, and the group of 4 is still in front of them by about a minute, minute and a half at this moment, which has the rider up there, T. Spanoot. So we got Laporte in the big group, we got Wout van Aert in the big group from Visma Lease Bike, and T. Spanoot up front. Now in this big group too, Quickstep got a rider up there, and UAE Team Emirates have Sivakov, and they had Soler, but Soler drop off and go back to the peloton. Once we come into the first category climb here, this climb and the second climb are super steep. Not monsters in length, but we're talking about 7 and 8 kilometers long. But we're talking about 7% for the first climb and 8% for the second. The second climb is a nasty one. Narrow, twisty, technical, and it's a hard, steep climb from the beginning all the way to the top, but then it'll drop down. The last climb's a little bit softer, just under 6% and only about 3.8 kilometers long. So this first climb, as the peloton's coming into it, we got the group of 4 up front. They got a gap of about a minute and a half on the group of 40 riders, we'll call it, coming up behind. You could call that the peloton if you want, but the real peloton with the GC favorites is coming in about 6-7 minutes back there from the front group of 4. Now, as the group of 4 starting this climb, they're working well together, staying calm. They go over the top of the KOM, Magnus Cort Nelson, and get maximum KOM points. When we look back at this group of 40, though, when they start to climb, it starts blowing up all over the place. We'll see 2 riders break off just at the top there. So we see Valentin Madouin, we'll see Guillaume Martin that split off from that group of 40, but that group has gotten reduced. We'll see Geraint Thomas as they're reaching the top of the KOM. He's kind of swinging off the back there, but he'll find his way back up. Ineos have Geraint Thomas, and they have Lawrence de Plus in this front group. Now they're going over the top, and the group of 2 there is only about 30-40 seconds behind the group of 4. The road starts getting really narrow as they bend off to the left, but when I go back and back the film up to look at what the peloton was happening, they're coming over the top of this at about 7 minutes, and it's Niels Palet that's riding the front for UAE Team Emirates. Now up front, as they're coming off the big wide road, this is the first time when the road starts to get technical, and it goes to the left turn. We still got a kilometer or 2 before we start getting into the next super hard climb with just under 19 kilometers to go. As the group of 4 starting to climb, we'll see the group of 2 coming up. They'll catch on to the back. Then we got 6 riders in the front group. Problem for these guys, though, the group of 30, 40 riders, whatever's left going over the first KOM climb, they're flying into the second category climb here as we get into under 20 kilometers to go on stage 17. Then we start seeing that Carapaz is about 10th position from the back. There's 30, 35 riders in here, so he's about 2/3 the way back of the peloton. Up front, like I said, 6 riders now have come together. They're riding the front. Then we're going to see the first attack from the big-time favorites back there as Simon Yates, Jayco Lula, throws in his attack. He quickly bridges up to the 6 riders in front. Once he comes around the bend there, the left bend, though, as he's reaching the back end of the group, look at him look behind. Well, when the cameras flash behind, who's coming up there? Richard Carapaz and Stephen Williams back there from Israel Premier Tech. Richard Carapaz rides from EF Education, and like I said, his team's done a ton of work. Now he's bridging up. We see Simon Yates catches onto the back of the group. He starts going straight to the front. He's throwing an attack because he knows Carapaz is coming quick. As Carapaz throws in another attack right away, he gets a gap on Stephen Williams back there. Stephen Williams has to fight to close the gap. Stephen Williams will fight to close the gap, and Carapaz is still riding the front. Simon Yates is still solo. The peloton hasn't even reached the climb yet, so we got to get further up into it before I can tell you what's happening with them. As Simon Yates is going full gas, Carapaz drops Stephen Williams. Then Carapaz starts bridging up and quickly gets up to Simon Yates. As he closed a 15-second gap, the 2 riders are side by side. Each rider is taking single pulls right now at the moment till we get under about 2 kilometers to go on this second category climb here on stage 17 of the Tour de France. Then Carapaz throws in his attack on Simon Yates there. Simon Yates, Jayco Lula can't quite hold the gap, and the gap keeps increasing up to about 10 seconds. Carapaz is going full gas. We look further down behind Simon Yates. Well, I told you Stephen Williams was getting dropped. And then is Enric Mas in a group back there with 3 riders. He's got Sivakov along with him. De Plus is in there too. But Mas knows he's going to need to make up some time here quick because Carapaz is going full gas. Up front, Carapaz, like I said, still riding strong on the pedals, going over the top of the KOM here solo. And we look further back, we'll go about 20 seconds back. That's Simon Yates back there, just a hair under. Simon Yates is going over. Enric Mas has thrown in an acceleration on his group of companions, had passed Stephen Williams, and now he's trying to close up the gap back there to Simon Yates, but he's still about 10 seconds behind Simon Yates. We'll call it 30, 40 seconds behind the front leader there of Richard Carapaz, dropping down the descent, going full gas. As Carapaz is winding his way through this narrow technical descent, trying to get into the last climb at 3.8 kilometers to go, Simon Yates is digging too. He's making time on Mas, who's losing time coming down this descent, but he's not making time on Richard Carapaz. As Richard Carapaz starts the last 3.8 kilometer climb here on stage 17, he's still got that about 30-second gap on Simon Yates. Now we start going back to the peloton because now they're properly going up this last climb. As they're going up the last climb, it was Niels Palet that started it. Then Lidl-Trek got on the front with Carlos Verona and Ciccone. Ciccone wants to try to put some time in the top 10 general classification guys, or maybe he's worried about some guys up the road, but all those guys are 20, 30 minutes down on general classification. But Verona's going on the front. He's pulling hard right now for Ciccone, and we'll see that it's Felix Gall back there trying to close the gap as Israel Premier Tech sitting third and fourth. That's Jakob Fuglsang and Derek G riding top 10 here for Israel Premier Tech. Holding on to Lidl-Trek, we see it's Felix Gall from AG2R closing that gap, and Tadej Pogačar, Remco Evenepoel, and Jonas Vingegaard are all locked on. The main GC favorites here, the peloton's getting reduced in size. And then when we go back up front, Carapaz is going up the last climb here, still with about a 35-second gap on Simon Yates. We go back to the peloton and see what was happening back there. Well, now we see it's Almeida on the front. Almeida's having a little conversation back there before he got on the front with Tadej Pogačar. Tadej Pogačar moves out from second row, drifts back, leaving Almeida there just on the front. And we'll see Remco Evenepoel, Jonas Vingegaard slot in front of Tadej Pogačar. Then Tadej Pogačar, with I'll call it 1.3 kilometer to go, he lights everyone up, starts attacking, going up the left side there. We'll see Jonas Vingegaard start following behind. Remco Evenepoel's following behind, and they got a gap on the rest of the GC favorites as Jonas Vingegaard's got Remco Evenepoel latched on his wheel. Tadej Pogačar still holding the gap. He's looking a couple times over his shoulder. But then we see Jonas Vingegaard look back. That means right now Visma Lease bike rider is having some problems. And all of a sudden he starts to fade. Remco Evenepoel slots in front of him. Then Remco Evenepoel gaps Jonas Vingegaard right now as he's trying to close up to Tadej Pogačar. Tadej Pogačar is having none of it. He's accelerating on the pedal. He's going to go over the top of the KOM. I'll call it about a 10-second gap on Remco Evenepoel, who's got about a 6-second gap on Jonas Vingegaard. Now we go back up to the front. Carapaz. What's Richard Carapaz doing? Well, Carapaz is throwing into the pedals big time right now because he knows he can win stage 17 of the Tour de France if he can hold off Simon Yates. He already dropped him on the penultimate climb, so he's going with everything in the pedals with nothing to lose here. With the speed of Carapaz, he's flying in the last 500 meters. He's going to look back over his shoulder, realize that he's got today's stage 17 won. Then he's going to celebrate the last 75 meters as he's got his arms wide. One more look over his shoulder. He knows he's got it clear. Then he's tapping the chest. Then he's pounding the fist in the air as he crosses the line to win the stage here, stage 17 of the Tour de France for EF Education. After a ton of battling from EF Education's Ben Healy, Richard Carapaz, and their whole teammates throughout week 1, throughout week 2, and now we're in week 3 here of the Tour de France. Richard Carapaz wraps up a stage victory for EF Education after a hard first 2 weeks here at the Tour de France. They did have the race leader's yellow jersey, though, in the first week when we're talking about racing down there in Italy. But now he's get the stage win to go along with his race leader's yellow jersey. Congratulations, Richard Carapaz. What's happening in second place? Well, second, Simon Yates from Jaco Lulo round out about 35-40 seconds back. Then Enric Mas will round out the podium here on stage 17. But the drama's not over. The GC battle's still happening. We go up front as they went over the top of the KOM, which I already told you. Tadej Pogačar is going over solo. He drops down the descent. He runs into the Intermarché rider there, Zimmerman. Georg Zimmerman is on the front pulling with Tadej Pogačar. But look at the picture as Tadej Pogačar caught the Intermarché rider. Well, that's Christophe Laporte right there. That's Visma Lease bike. Remember, they had not one, not two, but 3 riders in this front group. Christophe Laporte's dropped off. Now he's waiting for Jonas Vingegaard. Tadej Pogačar has the help there from Georg Zimmerman from Intermarché. Are they buddies? I don't know. Does he have a contract for UAE team members next year? I don't know. Does he just want to be at the front of the Tour de France and get his mug on the camera? Quite possibly. Maybe he just wants to get talked about in the butterfly effect. But Georg Zimmerman's working with Tadej Pogačar. We'll see Remco Evenepoel bombing down as he's dropped Jonas Vingegaard. But Christophe Laporte has already waited up and caught in front there of Jonas Vingegaard going full gas, trying to bring back the 2 GC leaders. That's first and third in front of him, with Christophe Laporte wrapping up Remco Evenepoel. Remco Evenepoel starts digging deep, and he starts closing the gap just about up to Tadej Pogačar and Georg Zimmermann. And then Christophe Laporte will come through and close the gap up for Visma Bike's Jonas Vingegaard. Now, we got the top 3 general classification favorites up here, but it's still not over. There's a ton more drama because we're still coming into 3.8 kilometer to go, so we know there's a GC fight possibly going on. As Remco Evenepoel throws in his attack, we're going to look there at Tadej Pogačar. He's going to be waiting over there for Jonas Vingegaard to do the work, but Jonas Vingegaard doesn't have to worry because he's got teammates all over the place, and Christophe Laporte's on the front right now. With Remco Evenepoel going full gas, he's going probably a few hundred meters, maybe call it 500. Then he gets up, and as he starts coming up, you see him yelling. What's he yelling at? If you're looking at the camera, looking at his face, he's yelling because Jan Hertz he had in the original break of 40 riders. Now he's coming up to the back wheel of Jan Hertz. He's yelling for Jan Hertz to punch it. Jan Hertz looks back, realizes that it's his Belgian teammate Remco Evenepoel trying to win the Tour de France or at least get a podium. He starts pulling hard on the front. Once he starts pulling hard for about 1 second, he's yelling at the moto there in front of him, telling the moto to get out of the way because they're coming up to what was left of the breakaway guys, and he needs the motorcycle to move because he's going faster than everyone else is. The only opening is where the motorcycle camera is giving us the view of Jan Hertz yelling at the motorcycle camera. Motorcycle camera accelerates, but when he does, guess what? Well, we start seeing some of the Visma bike riders there, because when we go further back down, we're going to see that all of a sudden Christophe Laporte blows. But guess what? Wout van Aert was in that front group too. So Wout van Aert's pulling on the front for Jonas Vingegaard, and then Tiesj Benoot's going to get behind Wout van Aert. So Visma bike have 3 riders for Jonas Vingegaard, and we're coming into a couple K to go as we see Jan Hertz up there still pulling. We get under a K to go. Remco Evenepoel accelerates hard off his teammate's wheel after he uses up all the energy of Jan. Now Remco's pulling full gas, but he's got only about a 10-second gap on Visma bike behind. Wout van Aert had blown, then Tiesj Benoot had taken over, but when the cameras go back up front, let me show you what's happening to Remco Evenepoel. He's digging deep, coming into the last 500 meters here, going full gas. He'll power all the way in around the last corner there with 75 meters to go. When we look further back down, what's happening at 300 meters to go? Well, Tiesj Benoot has just got done slowing up. Tadej Pogačar's thrown in a massive attack. We go back up to the front. Remco Evenepoel's around in that 75-meter bend. He's going to cross the line here, well, about 7 minutes down on the stage winner, and he's going to cross the line with only about 10 seconds behind. But when I show you the picture behind, Tadej Pogačar with the acceleration at 300 meters to go, out of the saddle, he holds it all the way into about 75 meters to go. That last bend there, sits down just a hair. We'll call it, instead of 75, we'll call it 125. He sits down just a hair, gets back up, keeps sprinting. Jonas Vingegaard's gap there from Tadej Pogačar there, but he's only losing about 2 seconds as Tadej Pogačar rounds the last bend, powers all the way to cross the line, 10 seconds behind Remco Evenepoel, 2-second gap on Jonas Vingegaard there from Visma bike. Now, when it's all said and done, when I want to talk about tactics, of course, because it's the butterfly effect, right? How did I like the tactics? Okay, we go back to Tadej Pogačar's attack. This is the most important thing. It was a knucklehead move. He's attacking probably 1.3 kilometers away from the penultimate climb here on stage 17 of the Tour de France. But what's he going to do? If I take you back to the 22 Tour de France, stage 11, that magnificent stage that he lost the Tour de France, when he was attacking going up the Galibier and he's attacking Primož Roglič, Jonas Vingegaard, and then he's drilling it for 4K on the front. Even if he had dropped Jonas Vingegaard on that stage in the 22 Tour de France, stage 11, even if he had dropped him, Wout van Aert was waiting over the top. So Tadej Pogačar, when you go back and you start thinking about the strategies you're trying to employ, remember, when you're going up the penultimate climb, you have Almeida on the front. Almeida's sitting 4th on the general classification. Don't run Almeida. Run Adam Yates, at least, because he's a couple spots behind Almeida on general classification. So if you're going to blow up any riders, at least blow up Adam Yates before Almeida. But then if you're going to attack anyways, have both of the guys going full gas up there. But you should never attack anyways, because just like in the 22 Tour de France, stage 11, Wout van Aert, Christophe Laporte, and Tiesj Benoot are waiting over the top. So what are you going to gain? Possibly all you do is hurt the legs of Almeida, and of course if Adam Yates that's in that group, it was only down to 11 guys when Almeida was on the front. So why hurt your teammates' legs? Why risk hurting your legs for a 2-second advantage? He said later afterwards in the interview that sometimes he doesn't even know why he does those kind of attacks, he just does them. But the fact of the matter is that we have seen at all the past Grand Tours that Tadej Pogačar does have a bad moment. So why risk the bad moment on a stage like today, possibly hurting your legs a little bit more when we still have stages 19 and 20 in the mountains? And Jonas Vingegaard has Christophe Laporte, Thies Benoot, and Wout van Aert, and already over the top of the climb, you know they're going to wait for him. So there's no kind of real gains you can get. Even if Jonas Vingegaard had a bad stage today, the most you're going to gain is 22nd. Now, when we look at Jonas Vingegaard's tactics of riding his teammate on the front to defend second, okay, he rode his teammate on the front. If you really want to win second, though, and you're Jonas Vingegaard, have Remco Evenepoel go up the road. Look over at Tadej Pogačar and say, hey, I don't care. I'm not racing for second. You can battle me on second on general classification or Remco Evenepoel right up there close to me too, and it'll just put more pressure on Tadej Pogačar to race that stage 19 and 20 and now have to be careful what Remco Evenepoel and what Jonas Vingegaard do to them on stage 19 and 20. So if you're Jonas Vingegaard, I don't even chase Remco if I'm trying to win the Tour de France. I chase him every time if it's the last mountain stage and I'm trying to protect second on the general classification. But at this moment on stage 17, when you got done doing the interview earlier in the stages before stage 17, you said your job here is to try to win the Tour de France. You're not racing for podiums and stuff. So if you're not racing for podiums, if you can get Remco Evenepoel closer to Tadej Pogačar on the general classification, well, that's just that much more that Tadej Pogačar has to be careful now about the Belgium rider. And if he's closer up on GC, and Tadej Pogačar's got to watch him and watch you, maybe there's a chance of winning a general classification at the Tour de France if Tadej Pogačar has a bad day. We all know he's got to have a bad day in order to win the GC, but I didn't like the tactics done by Tadej Pogačar. Jonas Vingegaard, I didn't care much for either when he rode his team on the front because, like I just got done telling you, you got to turn it into a tactical battle if you're going to beat somebody that has better legs than you like Tadej Pogačar does at this moment of the 24 Tour de France. Either way, when it's all said and done, Tadej Pogačar rounds out the stage, puts a little bit more time into Jonas Vingegaard of 2 seconds, and Jonas Vingegaard showed his first weakness here on stage 17. But of course, it was just an easier stage coming up the climb. Super hard for the riders that aren't climbers. But as Jonas Vingegaard knows, he needs 4 or 5 big climbs to get a little bit better on the last climb of the Tour de France. So today wasn't the ideal stage for Jonas Vingegaard, or was he just having bad legs? I don't know. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. I'll see you guys on the next edition real soon.